In the morning, we have found a group of orcas in a place which is called Kvænangen. Kvænangen is not far away from Skjervøy, and in the past 3 years, the orcas have spent their winter time over here. Sometimes it's very random how they swim together, but sometimes you can see beautiful formations. My favorite is when they line up right next to each other and create a horizontal line of orcas, and they are just keep swimming together. It's almost like a synchronized swimming. Previous studies shows that the orcas spending approximately 60% of their lifetime feeding or actually traveling to a location where they can find food. This morning it looked like that they were traveling to find some herring. They kept a tighter formation, so that means that they were swimming next to each other. After a couple of breaths, the group usually dive and then you cannot see them for a few minutes. But it's very funny to see that the adult ones can keep their breath for longer than the young ones, and that means that when they come up again to breathe on the surface, you usually will spot the first time a baby or a younger animal. We were cruising together with them for at least half an hour this morning, and they absolutely did not seem to be bothered by us. We joined next to them parallel, we kept the same speed as how they were swimming, and they looked very calm around us. It's actually very easy to spot if they find some herring, because then they slow down and they start to swim in circles. Sometimes you can experience very dramatic light changes in these episodes. When we are out at sea, it often happens that when we are taking a video, on one side it's very dark and it's very stormy, maybe it's already snowing, and on the other side it's still sunny because the snowstorm hasn't reached that area yet. So that's the reason why you can see that either the same feeding filmed from one position is a little bit dark and it's a little bit wintry, but if we turn the camera on the other side, then you can see beautiful sunlight and you can see like nice weather. In this episode, I will introduce you to 3 individual male killer whales. The first one is NKW457. NKW stands for Norwegian killer whale. Each and every orca who has been already identified has a code like this, and that can be used for future references. Some of the orcas already got a name, but because the Norwegian killer whale population is quite big, approximately 1,500 animals, not all of them has a name yet, but all of them has a code. It's a very valid question now. How do we identify an orca? So to identify an orca, you need to have a photo, preferably from the left-hand side, from its dorsal fin and the saddle patch. The dorsal fin and the saddle patch is a unique combination for each and every animal. It's like a fingerprint for humans, and it's unique to all of them. Photo identification of the orcas, it's a very time-consuming job because you need to go through thousands of pictures and you need to find the correct match. How you can find the correct match? You can find the correct match based on the shape of the dorsal fin, based on the coloration of the saddle patch, based on the scars what the animal has. Probably they can have damages, unfortunately, but these kind of things which makes an animal unique also makes at the same time the identification process a little bit easier. This week we have been very lucky because we have seen a fully grown male orca breach. That's a very unique opportunity because in Norway the orcas breach very rarely, and even if they do, it's usually a juvenile animal. But we were lucky enough to see a fully grown male orca jump out of the water. And that orca was NKW153. So we got the owner to name him and we are going to refer to him as Jumpy from now on. If the weather is nice and sunny, we are always rewarded even more to see the orcas because the sun's reflection on their dorsal fin, it almost looks like that their dorsal fin is made out of gold. It's very, very beautiful. The next animal is NKW153. He's a fully grown male, and the very first time when he was sighted, it was in 1996 in the Tysfjord area. Back then he was already a fully grown male, so he's estimated to be more than 40 years old at the moment. On this sunny day, we have been lucky enough to see Stripey and Jumpy swimming together, so that means most likely they belong to the same pod. Sometimes in these episodes you can see that the orcas are approaching the boat very closely. That either can happen because they are curious about us, or it can happen during a feeding session because they find the herring underneath the boat. The herring is trying to escape the orcas, and sometimes they look for shelter underneath the boat. And then when the herring swims underneath the boat, then the orcas are gonna start circling around the rib, and that's when you can see that they are coming up just a meter away from us. NKW457 was first sighted in 2013. We can refer to him as Stripey from now on in these episodes because he has 3 white stripes in his saddle patch, and that's what makes him a little bit more unique, and that's what makes him a little bit more easily identifiable. Back then it was uncertain if he is a male or if he is a female because he used to have a small fin and it was a little bit curved. But he was sighted each and every winter time, so by now we already know that he is a male because he already has a much larger and a much straighter dorsal fin. He is not yet fully grown, but he is estimated to be between 12 to 14 years old. How long do the orcas live in the wild? Well, that's a very good question. Male orcas estimated to live around 50 to 60 years old, and the females slightly longer, so that means that they live approximately until 70 or even until 80 years old. Of course, there are some exceptional cases, and there was a famous killer whale in Canada who was a female, and she was estimated to be over 100 years old. That's very remarkable. The last orca who we are going to meet today is NKW063, aka Flappy. I'm sure all of you remember the movie Free Willy from the 90s, and the main star in Free Willy was an orca. His name was Keiko, and he had the same condition as what Flappy has, so he had a dorsal fin which was fully collapsed to one side. Of course, the reason why the dorsal fin collapses in captivity and in the wild is different, but in case of Flappy, nobody knows what happened. However, it's assumed to be that he probably had a boat collision. Flappy has been sighted each and every winter since 2014. He is probably a fully grown male already and assumed to be around 16 or 17 years old. Even though what happened to his dorsal fin, Flappy is perfectly fine. He can swim, he can feed, he can dive. He is maybe a little bit more shy than the other animals, but if you are patient enough with him and his pod, he is curious, and sometimes he gets close to a boat and shows himself. The orca's dorsal fin does not contain any bones. It's made out of cartilage and it's covered by their skin. Because of this, if they get an injury to their dorsal fin, for example like flappy, then the damage is permanent. Unfortunately, the dorsal fin will not heal and it's not going to be as it was before the injury. You can see in this episode that at the beginning when we encountered them, they kept their distance and we also behaved very respectfully and never pushed them. But after like half an hour, we were cruising right next to them, kept the same speed as how they were swimming, and eventually all the pod, including Flappy, they came closer to the boat and checked us out so we could have a closer look at him and we can show it to him.